What is the creepiest, most blood-chilling thing you or someone you know have experienced? I was on a 15-hour bus trip from the Yucatan to Chiapas in Mexico with my family. It was late at night, and after several hours of driving we stopped at a gas station to go to the bathroom, grab snacks, etc. It would have been like any other trip. However, I noticed there was an unusual amount of police. When we got back on the bus, the driver informed us that the police had received a tip that our bus was being targeted for a robbery by Mexican bandits. They would escort us. We drove and drove for hours up a nauseatingly winding road, on the side of a cliff. One police truck in front of us, and one behind us, armed to the nines. I was on high alert, but after a while I dozed off. That was, until the bus came to an abrupt stop. I remember peering out the front window, and seeing a series of large rocks placed strategically across the road. Everything was dark, save these rocks being illuminated by the bus lights. If the police hadn't been there, this is what would have went down. Step 1. Bus driver disembarks, tries to remove rocks. Step 2. Mexican bandits kill bus driver, or holds hostage. Step 3. Bandits board bus. Step 4. Rob, rape, kill. I was 17 years old, white-looking female. I'm a halfie, and the rest of my family is Mexican, or looks full Mexican, and even then I knew what would have happened to me. Kidnapping for ransom would definitely not have been out of the question, and rape a high guarantee. We were in the middle of nowhere on a bloody fucking mountain. If the police weren't there, would I be here to tell this story? Probably not. When I was 16, my parents went out of town for a weekend. It was actually pretty sweet because I got to be king of the castle for the weekend. So I get home that Friday night and just dick around, internet, video games, etc., and start watching TV around dusk. The way our living room was set up was that there was a set of glass doors right next to the television that looked out to the back porch backyard. The backyard was surrounded by ivy that grew on a hill around a 45-degree angle. So I'm just mindlessly channel surfing and I see some movement outside. At first I just dismiss it thinking it's a bird or a neighborhood cat or something, but I then notice that whatever is moving is way bigger than a bird or a cat. I go and put my face near the glass and stare into the backyard, and there's some dude just crouching in the ivy looking into the house. Our eyes meet and he has somewhat of an oh shit moment and bolts out of our yard. Scared the shit out me. I grew up scared shitless that someone would come up to that glass door at night. We had vertical blinds to block out any prospective peepers, but one night when my folks were out of town I was up late watching TV on the couch and all of a sudden there was 2 loud knocks right on the glass. Of course my blood goes cold, but I quickly think that maybe one of my friends who know my parents are out of town snuck out and came over. I work up the courage to go slide open one of the blinds to peek out, fully expecting to see one of my friends. Standing there is some swarthy looking guy with a mustache just looking in at me. He pulls at the door but it's locked. I booked my ass straight out of the front door and ran straight to my aunt's house a few doors down. We called the police and they said there were so many footprints in the snow that he had to have been circling around the house for hours. There was even some footprints on the roof by the master bedroom. I was 8 and woke up to an explosion of dog barks and screams coming from our backyard, then the screams trailing down the street. We get outside and my dog is chewing on a bloody shoe, and a bit of gym shorts were hanging off the backyard fence. We call the cops, they investigate. From the footprints they could see the guy tried every window with my dog following. When he got to mine, my dog went full attack mode. The guy was picked up that night on an unrelated charge, but they put 2 and 2 together later and charged him. My dog allowed them to collect the gym shorts but that shoe was his. When I was 3, our home was broken into. The burglar stole money off of my parents' dresser, and then went into my room and just stared over my sleeping body. I woke up and saw him. My father watched him from his bedroom while calling the police. When the burglar left and the police were there with the lights on, his footprints were in the shag carpet. This is my earliest memory. When my friend's dad was around 17 years old, he decided to go camping with about 8 or so of his friends. This took place in the Wisconsin forest. When they got to the site, they decided to split up to collect firewood in groups of 2, and meet back at the site in around 20 minutes. One group wasn't back right away, and since they were a couple, they just assumed they were fornicating in some bushes, and cracked a couple jokes about it. After around an hour they decided they should probably go look for them. They saw behind a bush part of the girl's bloody shirt, and the man's shoes were lying scattered around the scene. They quickly rushed back to their car so they could drive to the park ranger's office, which was about 5 miles away, and report the incident. However, they found that their gas had been siphoned, so they had no choice but to walk. On their walk back to the office, they saw a semi pass by with one driver and two faces pressed up against the window, which they believe were their friends begging for help. The two friends were reported missing and have never been found to this day. I was in Vegas last year with my brother. We both like to party hard, still in our 20s. Walking down the strip, I see two guys with backpacks on. I know what that means. I say, damn, wish we had some weed. They immediately turn around and offer us other things as well, and we took down his number to get other things later in the night. Hours later, after tons and tons of booze and stuff, we call this guy up for more. When we met these two guys, they were on foot. The second time though, we had to meet them in front of a hotel because they were driving. So he tells us to hop in for a few so we can get what we need without people watching. Now at this point, my brother and I are fucked up, and don't realize what's happening until it starts to get dark. We had only been driving for 10 minutes but we were obviously off the strip, away from the lights, people, anything. This guy is driving like a goddamn maniac, with music blasting, so it was a bit distracting. My brother finally asks them where we're going. They say we're heading to a liquor store real quick and then they'll drop us back off. But it seems like we're in the middle of nowhere. Finally realizing the situation we're in, we open the doors while we're stopped at a light and run to the only thing we see, a gas station. We flagged down a cab that drove by a few minutes later, which he says is illegal, but we were obviously in need of help. After we told him what happened, he calmly tells us, there is no liquor store over here. When I was around 10 or 11 I think, my friend and I went for a bike ride. We were neighbors and lived out in the country. We were on a particularly empty road, mostly woods and fields, not a lot of houses or people around. A large commercial van, the kind with the large rolling door at the back, if I recall correctly, was parked at the side of the road. My friend and I rode closer and the driver was out of the van, and he asked us if we wanted some water. We said no thanks. He told us it was no big deal. He had lots in the back of his van. We just said no again, and turned around and rode our bikes back home. I don't remember even telling my parents about it. Like by the time we got back home we went in the pool or something, and totally forgot about it. I can only imagine why this guy was trying to get two young girls into the back of his van. It makes me cringe every time I think about it. I'm glad we were smart enough to know we needed to get out of there fast. A year ago I was driving home from college. It's a 3-hour drive and you cross the boonies to get between the two destinations. On my way home I realized I had forgotten to get gas. So I took an exit off of the freeway into a small town to get gas. I pulled up to what I guess was a locally owned gas station's cause it was closed, but you could still use your debit/credit card. I pulled up to the pump and heard movement in the tree line to the west of me. As I looked over I saw two huge guys emerging from the tree line running straight at me with masks on. I ran back into my car and drove away with them only a few feet away from me. I called the cops and gave my statement. Apparently those two guys have already badly beaten a few people and killed one and are hitting different towns. I was sitting in some basketball courts at about 12 to 1 a.m. with my then girlfriend, and she got up and started to walk towards this church. We were with two other friends. I looked at them in confusion and followed her. She stood in the car park of the church looking down the road crying. Not loudly, just quietly crying. She said she saw her dead friend. We went to sit back down in the middle of the court. As we walked through the gate it creaked as we were about 2 to 3 meters through the gate. When we were sitting in the middle of the court, it was a still summer's night. A light gust of wind blew and circled us. It confused the fuck out of me. Happened to me just last night. I was with my significant other in a quiet park. Some dude sneaked up on us and attacked us with nothing, but he was trying to like push me or something, but I pushed him back. I saw a moving shadow and knew what was coming. My significant other pulled my hand and we ran back towards our car, which was like 50 meters away. Dude was chasing us and attempted to open the door on my significant other side, but I had it locked as soon as we got into the car. Nothing happened. He wasn't armed or anything, but it was our first time facing situations like that and definitely scared the shit out of us. We're never going back to dodgy places like that anymore. This was the late 1980s, I think, and my friend's dad was on a business trip, somewhere, I can't remember where. I do remember him telling this story shortly before a flight I had when I was younger, and it made me shit bricks. So things were all normal during takeoff and he described a sudden vibration, like when the landing gear goes up on the plane, followed by a loud explosion. The door had blown off mid-flight and sucked part, if not all the first class with it, and the plane had to make an emergency landing. It wouldn't have been so scary if I didn't have a flight to take so soon after that one. And before the flight had even started, we had to switch planes because an engine had started on fire.
Later.